She's a rock star in the culinary world, the reigning champion of MasterChef India Season 4. A force to be reckoned with in the kitchen, she's taken the culinary world by storm with her ability to blend traditional flavors with modern techniques. A true inspiration to aspiring chefs around the globe, she's a culinary superstar in every sense of the word. Her contagious energy and smile makes her an instant fan favorite. Please join me in welcoming to Culinary Arts Academy presents I.I.M.U.N's Recipe for Success, a foodie extraordinaire, a connoisseur of the culinary arts, a restaurateur, entrepreneur, content curator, and most of all, a youth icon, Chef Neha Deepak Shah.
Thank you so much.
Welcome, Chef Neha.
It's been really long. Somebody gave such a long description, but thank you so much.
Again, very exciting, and thank you for joining us today. There are so many questions that have come to us, and we compiled them and made these questions for you. And the first one that I wanted to start with is, taking us back to where it all began. Your first memories in the kitchen, how did you get introduced to culinary arts? Who was your mentor, and how did it all start?
I've been a foodie kid. I've always loved eating food. Ever since probably I was a toddler. And of course, like everybody else, my first encounter of food was my mom's food. And I mean, yes, she has been an integral part of my journey. And I grew up eating her food. She was very ahead of her time in the sense that she would always cook fancy dishes. And this is all pre-internet era, correct? There was no internet, there was no Google. All she had were these Tarla Dalal cookbooks. And she would cook out of those cookbooks. And I think I grew very fond of those cookbooks. I started enjoying, just looking through these cookbooks, looking at these exciting photos, and all the food looked very styled and stunning. So I think that was my first encounter of falling in love with food. I genuinely would read cookbooks where I would be, whenever I had like free time on the weekend or in my summer vacations or winter break, what I would do was I would look at recipes and tell my mom, why don't we cook this together? So yeah, it started as, being my mom's sous chef, and then growing from there.
No, I think so many chefs that I speak to, they always say that, it all started
it's not a
from my
surprise.
mother. Like, that was the first inspiration. Yeah. And then after that, the second name that everybody gives is Tala.
You can see even in the chat box, so many people are like, oh, she's amazing. And genuinely, I still think she's irreplaceable, at least for me.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But your first major milestone that now, how we look up to Tarla Dalal, and now people have started looking up to you. Your first milestone was from the MasterChef kitchen, right? That was where it all, I mean, you've been in the food industry before that, I guess. But yes, but that is where people started knowing the superstar that you've become today. Can you tell us a little about that MasterChef journey?
Yes, MasterChef happened. I'm actually a food technologist. I studied food science and technology. I've always been associated with food. The entire journey of MasterChef actually began because I started living alone, and I started cooking for myself actually. And I had no sense of proportion. I ended up with lots of food. And the easiest thing to do is when you have too much food, you share food, correct? So I started carrying food to work and started sharing it with my colleagues, who I now call friends. They were not just colleagues, they were friends. And, these people actually motivated me. And like I say, a little motivation in life goes a long way. It landed me onto MasterChef because one of my friends really pushed me, and she's like, no, you have to go. And I was like, really? And then, I landed in MasterChef. At that point, see, what people see is today, right? People don't know my backstory. Okay, I went on MasterChef when in 2012. I was the only vegetarian on the show, and eventually I was eliminated. And I went back in season 3 where I did not even qualify. I don't know, for whatever reason. And then I went back in season 4 where that is the success that people see today. But I feel that success cannot be measured on what you are today, because yes, I owe a lot to what I'm doing today to MasterChef, and it was an incredible journey. In fact, MasterChef season I think 6 is just on. Probably like the finale episode will be today or tomorrow. I'm not too sure, but and this is a really coincidence because we're talking today, and I'm talking about my MasterChef journey. So I was talking to one of the contestants who is on this season, and to be honest, everybody relates to the same thing. You know, all of us have had similar journeys, and nobody's going to deny that it's a wonderful platform to showcase your talent. Also, commit to your passion, because I was very happy in what I was doing. It's not like I was not liking my job or anything. I was equally passionate about what I was doing. So it's not like I wanted to quit a 9 to 6. I don't have that kind of a story. I didn't want to quit a 9 to 6 to do this. But yeah, I mean, when MasterChef happened, I took a break from work, went on to MasterChef, and post that, I was like, I have to give this a chance. You know, because if I'm not going to give this a chance, I might regret maybe later in life. I don't know, but today when I look back, I don't think I could have been doing anything else than this.
But you know, and that is very interesting when you spoke about you were a vegetarian on a MasterChef journey. I mean, I mean, was that one of the reasons why
Probably
you did not qualify in season
you
1?
know, because the thing, I'm still a
Are you
vegetarian.
still a
I only
vegetarian?
cook vegetarian. I
Oh
don't
my
even cook
God.
with eggs. In fact, I'm one of those vegetarians who will 99% even avoid hidden eggs, you know, unless and until I've,
Oh my
yeah,
God, that's me. And it's such a tough world to be an eater who doesn't eat hidden eggs. And I can just
So see,
imagine how would it
what
be for
happens
a
is,
cook.
because see, I never saw eggs or any meat around me all my life. Okay, so I don't have any connection or a relationship with it at all. Okay, so now because I've never really had exposure to it, I honestly don't feel it is tough, and I don't feel. Also, when I started my restaurants were vegetarian. They are vegetarian, and the thing is that see, in India, 40% of our population is vegetarian and 60% are meat eaters. Again, in India, nobody minds vegetarian. Okay, even the people who eat non-vegetarian, they will never tell you that कि मेरे को vegetarian खाना नहीं खाना है, right? A lot of our, I won't say most, but a lot of our street food is vegetarian, you know, and there is like, I would call it national love, and now I would call it like universal love for vegetarian food and some dishes, you know. It's incredible because I feel that there is a lot that can be explored in the vegetarian uh, spectrum. But again, see, I live in Dubai right now, and honestly, I feel like as Indians, we have really nailed the vegetarian food. You know, I don't think anybody else in the world has represented vegetarian food the way we do. And I'm so proud of it today because a lot of times I go to restaurants and I call them prior and I ask them, like, what all do you have vegetarian? Can you modify dishes for me? And they'd be like, yeah, everyone's willing to do it. Okay, so it's just the matter of asking, you know, and of course, I have met people who are like, what? You don't eat meat? How are you even a chef? And I'm like, well, you don't know what you're missing out. So yeah.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, because you never
Yeah.
knew how to cook with eggs, because you never exposed, it was not
Not,
like
not at all,
it's like
not at
a
all. And
demerit to
I don't
yourself.
know how many of
Just
y'all know this, but MasterChef season 4 was a vegetarian season. So when I went on to MasterChef, it
oh,
was a vegetarian season. In fact, we weren't even given
oh
eggs.
wow.
So to be honest, there wasn't a deal breaker for me. And I think that I made it to where I got to, probably because of that. But see,
Kudos to MasterChef
that
for doing
showcases
this.
the
I
power
mean,
of vegetarian food in India, because you can't discount the vegetarian population and the viewers who are watching it.
absolutely.
So, I mean, yes, of course, hats off to MasterChef. Probably it was the only vegetarian season in the world, huh?
No, I'm sure. I mean, I was shocked to
Not
know
at
that you
all.
don't even use eggs. But yeah, running a whole reality show, which is a cooking culinary reality
Yeah,
show
it was
without
quite
even eggs, I mean
fun.
that's commendable. But my next question was in regards to getting gourmet food to India. I mean, I myself, now I'm in Bombay, but I am from a small town, in Ranchi, where it's only, good food is Indian food and Italian food, right? And even if it is
Manchurian.
Chinese, it's that normal Hakka noodles and Manchurian and all of that. It's our smaller cities are not, at least till I was there, they were not very much exposed to, other cuisines. Do you see that there is a shift now? Do you, or, and I mean, I don't see my city expecting or accepting something like a sushi very soon. But do you see, and how long do you think that will take time, to accept other cuisines and move beyond from our normal, pastas and
So
Indian food?
I have to say that now, okay, let's not label this as probably gourmet food. Gourmet is just a tag that people have probably, okay, it's a nice word. But then the thing is that, of course, like you said, that, growing up, to be very honest, the fanciest dish for me was the ogratine and pasta. है ना? So, obviously, सबका first exposure वही था. But then what happens is that, see, now with the way people have access to internet, social media, I think it's not about big city, small city. Listen, guys, my restaurants were in Jaipur. I'm from Bombay. I grew up in Bombay. I lived in Delhi for 9 years. Currently, I live in Dubai. I've always been a big city girl all my life. Okay. And when I started restaurants, my restaurants were in Jaipur. I'm not even going to call it a tier two, it's a very smart city. When we started, let me tell you, um, we were the first restaurant to serve good sushi, good dim sums, good Thai food. So,
Exactly.
see,
How did you
I
do
always
that?
think that, see, smaller cities have more business people. I feel so. And bigger cities have more corporate
Yeah.
people.
There's a
Huh?
lot of money in smaller cities. There's a lot of money in smaller
It's
cities.
not
It's just
just
that
about
they
the
don't know
money,
where
they're
to.
well traveled also.
Huh.
Okay, and the thing is that a lot of exposure comes from travel. Okay, so whatever I know today is all because of, I've lived in a lot of places. A lot of places. I've lived in many cities all over the world. So I think a lot of my exposure comes from eating all this food in like different places and experiencing it. And like you said, ki probably, yes, sushi aaj bhi, my husband doesn't like sushi. Forget everything else. उसे भी नहीं पसंद है. He only likes the sushi that I make at home, because it is, see, to make any other cuisine for Indians, okay, you have to modify it. You have to make it suitable for the Indian
Correct.
palate. And there is nothing wrong in it. Okay, there is
Correct.
absolutely nothing wrong in it, because food itself is an interpretation. It is a perspective. Okay, there is no right or wrong. I hate when people say that this is not the correct way to cook something. Guys, it's not the correct way for you. I mean, most times as humans, we think that what we know is the universe. But the universe is much beyond. And I feel that unless and until people will adapt the food to suit Indians, you can't. And sorry, but I think the world has now realized one thing, that you cannot ignore Indians. We are a 1.3 billion population, 1.4 billion.
Yeah. We need our aloo tikki burgers and we need our paneer pizzas. Otherwise, your Domino's and McDonald's are not.
Imagine if McDonald's was serving what they started serving in the US, India, who was going to eat it? Nobody was going to eat it. Okay, so I think that if McDonald's, Domino's, Pizza Hut have done what they have done, come on, that's a sign that if you want to successfully run a business and cater to the Indian audience, unless and until you're going to modify it, make it accessible to them, for them, people are not going to enjoy it. Okay, मैं अपने घर में कुछ भी बना सकती हूँ, but if I'm running a business, I'm running a business for people, right? If there's going to be no acceptance, who is going to eat all this food? Am I going to be eating all this? No, right? So you got to be. See, imagine, Reena Parmar has written Nietzsche that, Domino's started pure vegetarian outlets. In fact, McDonald's in Amritsar near Golden Temple also has a pure vegetarian outlet. So there are cities like, Pushkar, non-veg is not allowed. Pure shahar mein there is no non-vegetarian food. So, I mean, come on, we're all, okay, talking about Pushkar, let me tell you one thing. The best fancy gourmet food of my life has been in Pushkar. Avocado and these falafel rolls, which is called Lafa wrap, is sold on the street for like 60-70 rupees. Wow. And it is so tasty, so tasty. So, I mean, we've gotten there, and I'm telling you, it's only going to get better. And I feel that if there is no acceptance, it's okay, it's fine.
You spoke about how the global food needs to adapt to the Indian tongue. How can you also speak about Indian food for a global audience? How is the changing perception of the Indian food? Pehle tha ki bas butter chicken or jo normal, very cliche Indian food which is popular. Now do you think that's changing? People are getting to know more and more of Indian food, and not that we are not just.
You're absolutely right. Whenever I've traveled, I've always heard people say, "Oh, this obviously butter chicken, naan." These are the only two things that people know. Okay, so they'll be like naan bread. I don't know why they call it naan bread, but any which ways, chai tea.
Like they call chai tea.
So they'll be like the naan bread and butter chicken. So obviously, but that has changed. That has changed. I mean, I don't know any place in the world where I did not find South Indian food. I've managed to find South Indian food everywhere. So it is amazing, because I feel that, and see, I feel a lot of the credit goes to some really talented chefs like Chef Manish Mehrotra. You have Chef Gagan Anand. I actually had the privilege and the opportunity to work with Chef Gagan, so I feel like these chefs are responsible for taking food from beyond butter chicken and naan. Okay, so in fact, they are the ones who actually changed and introduced even Indians to a lot of things. Forget the word, as I would still call myself a North Indian. Okay, how much do we know about South Indian food? Okay, so even as Indians, we are not aware of our cuisine. So I don't expect, you know, Westerners to have that kind of exposure. I think what you expose them to is what they get a sneak peek into. But I feel like every person, and I've lived in Jaipur because of my business, and having lived in Jaipur, I would meet a lot of foreigners who would come in and they would be mind blown. They would be mind blown. They were like, this is a completely different side of India that we imagined. And I think I'm very proud of the Indian cuisine. Um, every state has a different cuisine, different flavors. The eastern part of India is so flavorful, so flavorful. Again, nobody talks about it. Um, and honestly,
Yeah.
even I have learned through this journey, and I'm still learning. So every single day when I'm researching or reading, I feel like I'm learning. I'm learning every single day. I was shooting for this television show. It was Street Foods of India. And we were shooting an episode which was portraying Northeastern street food. I've never traveled to the Northeast, okay? And obviously, fine, samosa sab jagah milta hai, pani puri sab jagah milti hai, but I'm sure there is much beyond the samosa and pani puri. And then when we started researching, we realized, oh, there is a dish called keli chana. Oh, there is a dish called laping, you know. And I was like, wow, there's so much to learn. So, I mean, even Indians living abroad don't know. I mean, honestly, our exposure is only to South Indian food, that too just idli and dosa. And in North Indian food, it's like just the curry and naan bread, as they call it. So that's pretty much it.
The Indian cuisine as a whole is like an undiscovered treasure, both for
It's an
Indians and of
ocean.
course
I'm
for
telling you,
the
if I start
Westerners.
cooking one unique recipe every single day, just from the Indian cuisine, I think I shouldn't be running out of dishes for at least 10 years. Straight. Easy. Because, I mean, dekho, I mean, everybody has a different way of cooking something as basic as aloo, right? किसी के घर का अलग होता है, किसी के घर का अलग होता है. So there are endless recipes, and as chefs, you know, as somebody in the culinary world, I take this as um my responsibility to educate more, not just educate, but just share more and more recipes beyond what people would know. And it's happening. Anjali, it's happening. You know, people are now, look at the way social media is. I know so many people who create regional food. They create only regional food. They don't cook any pasta or pizza. Like there is one girl, she cooks only food from Uttarakhand. There's one girl, she only cooks food from the Bengali cuisine. So now the world is changing, and I'm like so happy about it because it's educating me every single day.
But educate us on how you go about creating new recipes and menu ideas. Like what is
So
your
I love to
creative
travel.
process behind it?
So whenever I travel within India, outside India, I always my itineraries revolve around food. Okay, so that's my biggest inspiration. Like, or in fact, not biggest, it's my only inspiration. Because I feel like when I've tasted something, it gets stuck into my soul, you know, and I can't get it out of my head. And then I have this urge to recreate it, work on it. And then I've lived in Thailand for some time, so I'm like obsessed with Thai food. But again, I feel like I don't know enough. So so I spend about 2 hours reading every single day, even today. Okay, so 2 hours just goes into
Wow.
reading, researching, knowing more about cuisines. And this is not just from content point of view. This is just from the point of view to educate myself. You know, it will open up more. Um, it will open up and window which I probably haven't explored. So I like to meet people. When I moved to Dubai, I met a couple who was Lebanese, and I was asking them, how do you cook this recipe? Because probably I've been cooking it wrong all my life, you know? Like, I mean, I've seen some recipes, Indian recipes made by foreigners, and I feel यार ये तो हम ऐसे नहीं बनाते. Wrong नहीं बोलूंगी, but probably there's a better way of making it. So learning the best practices and how I plan. So I try a lot of new recipes on my own too. So today, in fact, right before this, 7 to 8 minutes before I went live, I was cooking and we were filming something, and it was a dish that I made for the first time. It was very nice, but again, this is not really. This is probably my interpretation of a food that I like. So a lot of fusion has been happening. So like I love dumplings and momos and dim sums. But you see now, people are like, I myself made a paneer makhani momo, where it was a momo filled with paneer with like a makhani gravy. So sometimes it's also about bringing flavors that are comforting to you onto the plate, but in another form. And honestly, everyone loves it because everyone loves relatable flavors. The minute, like sometimes I don't live with my parents, and when I go home, and sometimes when I taste a certain dish that my mom makes, it takes me back to a memory. You know, it's exactly the feeling. And that's what happens with food, that when we taste something that's familiar, it takes us back to either nostalgia, a memory. It's it's amazing. And that's what I mean, that's like the most important thing for me.
Now I'm feeling hungry. Hearing about dal makhni momos. but now let me take you to some other question. Otherwise, my mouth will start watering. To a more serious question in terms of gender dynamics in this industry. Like, are there any gender stereotypes, or have you faced anything,
Yes.
or have you seen something like that where you feel that
So I'll tell you,
tough?
when we were conceptualizing the restaurant, when we started कि हम restaurant खोलेंगे, my business partner and me, we decided that let's open a women-run restaurant, all women. Okay, so we spoke to a lot of consultants who were going to hire for us, and we told them, listen, we want to try to recruit as many women as we can, and it would be women-led. It's going to sound really bad, actually. So we kept an open house interview, and only one woman turned up amongst 45 men. So I was quite disappointed. I was very disappointed. So I don't want to. It's a very touchy topic to me because the thing is that, see, in India, a lot of this has to do with society. Because, see, restaurant involves late working hours. Not everyone's family is comfortable having women work until late. And I'm not going to be judgy about it. Sorry, but a lot of cities in India, I would like to label as unsafe. So,
Correct.
I mean, there are logistical issues around this. And the reason why big five-star hotels have been able to recruit women is because they take the responsibility of dropping them back home, making sure they are safe, creating a safe work environment. Also, I think that women have strengths, men have strengths. Okay, so let's not get into, we all know that men are physically stronger than women. So let's not compete in that space, right? And I feel like women have have a higher EQ. We have a higher emotional quotient. That's why we do very well in jobs that require human involvement, speaking to people, even cooking. Women make very good chefs. Women have dainty hands, very, very, nimble hands where they can be very precise and do things very well. So it's not like men don't do it. But yes, in the culinary world and in the Horeca sector, which is hotels, restaurants, and catering, it is men led because to a large extent it is also labor intensive. I mean, I have spent 17 hours at work because we have caterings to do. I would do it because it's my business, it's my baby, I have to do it. But I mean, you go to Thailand. The reason why I'm so inspired by Thailand is because the entire restaurant is run by women. They open the restaurant, they do the closing, they cook, they do the dishes, everything. But in Indian society, I somehow feel that, like when we were interviewing these women, and constantly we were interviewing women, women would come and they'd be like, no, I don't want to wait tables. My family is not okay me going and waiting tables. I don't mind being a receptionist. I don't mind being a hostess. Uh, so, I mean, again, like I said, I'm not going to be judgy here. It's a personal choice. That's why you'll see a lot of. We have a
But we
very,
have a long way to
very,
go.
very long way to go. And I'll tell you something. There is a very famous journalist. Her name is Rupali Dean. So Rupali runs this IP, which is called. She actually conceptualized this IP, which is called Chefs, which is SHEFS. So Chefs of Leela. So on the 21st of April, me along with three very, very talented women chefs are going to be cooking in Leela, Chennai. Okay, so she brings chefs from all over the world, women chefs all over the world, together to do like an 8-hand dinner or a 6-hand dinner, if it's 3 or 4, how many ever. But she brings women chefs because I'm telling you, we still have such a long way to go. And I wish the world never actually put men and women as. I wish that it was just one, but it's okay. It's fine.
No, I mean, we've come a long way, but there's a long way to go. And people like you at the forefront, I'm sure.
I still feel like
we
see what I
reach
do today. So I've actually exited my restaurant business. I don't run that business anymore. Because probably I wanted to do more beyond. I wanted to reach more people, and I wanted to. And the thing is that being a content creator versus actually being a chef is very different. Trust me, content creators are content creators. You have to have run a restaurant and done that day in and out to call yourself a chef, because being a chef is not easy. It's one of the most underpaid, underrated, thankless job in the world. I have so much respect for chefs. It's unbelievable how I feel about them today.
No, we can see how passionate you are about them. I'm a big foodie, so I am very thankful for all the chefs that exist and feed
You're
our
the
tummies.
kind one.
But that was great insight on the gender dynamics, and I'm sure they'll change over there. Hopefully, when we're having this conversation 5 years from now, hopefully your
I really
answer will
hope
be.
so. I mean, given the opportunity, I will only. Sorry, boys, sorry, men. I will only hire women.
No, I'm sure we'll definitely see a restaurant by you run only by women. We'd love to come there. But Neha, you've come from a food background. Before MasterChef, also you had some background in food industry. And when people think of entering food industry, they only restrict themselves to chefs. But I think there is a little bit more beyond it. Could you shed some light?
When I was in class 12, I was a bright student. I was academically a good student, and when I was picking my career choices, because I used to like cooking, all I knew was that I can be a chef. So I told my parents that I want to be a chef. My parents were like, you're a vegetarian. You can't be a chef. This was their answer. And they're like, when you go to like a hospitality school, you have to cook eggs, you have to cook meat. And I was like, shit, I can't do all this. So I started researching. I was like, there has to be more to, a career in food. When I started researching, so I used to love science. I was obsessed with science. Oh my God. Like, I was obsessed with science and maths also. So I was like, I don't want to leave science. I want to do something in science. But obviously, my parents were like, just do engineering. Just do it. And I was also like, fine, I'll just do engineering. Now, if this is what it is, this is what it is. Okay. When I started researching, I realized that there's something called as food technology. It's basically all the packaged food that you see in the market. There is a food technologist working on it behind the shelf uh, in the laboratory to make this shelf stable. So I studied that, and I started my career with Dabur. I was a research scientist with them, and then I moved on to with an American company, which was International Flavors and Fragrances. I joined there as an application technologist, and then got into flavor creation, which I absolutely loved. I think that my job made me a calmer person. It truly did. It made me a very, very focused, calmer person. It changed my personality type. Um, and yeah, there is a lot beyond. I mean, I always tell students, because when I was studying food technology, for the longest time, Anjali, nobody understood what I do. They still thought probably I go to college to learn how to
No, I
cook.
can imagine.
People would ask me, do you cook? Do you cook in the restaurant? What do you do? And I was like, no, guys, I don't cook. I work in the laboratory. Like there is like a lot of deeper science to it. But yes, when I went on to MasterChef, so they put your profession there. It was put as scientist. So people.
Then people would be like, "आप rocket बनाते हो, आप
People
क्या
thought
करते
that
हो?"
this is going to be some girl in, a lab coat with like spectacles trying to do her whatever. But it's wonderful. There are a lot of career choices. You can be a flavorist, you can be a food technologist, you can be a food chemist, you can be a food. Basically, there is quality assurance. So you can be a quality assurance specialist. Just like how we have pathology labs, we have food labs for food testing. So you can be a food testing technologist. There's so much, so much. I'm
People have
telling you,
not heard of.
nobody
Even I
knows.
had not heard that there's
Nobody
something called
knows
a
about
flavorist.
it.
Huh.
Yeah,
We can, I think, have a
yeah.
30-minute conversation on this only. Coming to the rapid fire, I give you a word and then you tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. Yeah. First being kitchen.
Calmness. It brings in the calmness in my heart.
Instagram.
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 Inspiring. It has
Favorite
to be
cuisine.
Oriental. I'm an Oriental kid. By chance, I was born in I was born in India, but I can eat Oriental food every single day.
We could have also had the debate when we
Oh
in
my
Mumbai
God,
and
but
Delhi.
that's a very
Probably
touchy
some
topic.
other time. Because I've read your interviews and I know which side you are more inclined
It's
to.
kind of
And I'm
controversial.
the opposite side. Yeah. But
Has
next
to
word
be
would
hands down
comfort food.
khichdi.
Your comfort food.
I made khichdi even on MasterChef, guys. Like, you know how much I love khichdi. Oh,
Your
has to
favorite
be
mithai.
rasgulla and rasmalai. Sorry. I know it had to be one, but rasmalai and rasgulla. I'm obsessed with it.
India.
Diversity. Oh, the love
Dubai.
of my life. I love this city. I love this city.
And I.I.M.U.N, this platform.
It's, I feel, unified. It unifies perspectives, things,
Yes.
people. Yeah.
Yeah. Our whole thing is based on Vasudev
Yeah.
Kutumbakam. So unifies makes a lot of sense. Yeah.